Hi, I'm Bassam Michael with Michael and Company CPAs and onlyfordentists.com. And today I wanted to talk with you about documenting your PPP loan forgiveness. As you may know, the SBA issued a sample of their PPP loan forgiveness application, and included in that application and instructions were information on documenting the PPP loan forgiveness and also detailed instructions on what documents you're going to need to submit with your PPP loan forgiveness application. So they're going to, as far as your payroll costs, they're going to look for documentation verifying the eligible cash compensation and non-cash benefits paid from the covered period or the alternative payroll covered period consisting of each of the following. They're going to look at bank account statements or third-party payroll service provider reports documenting the amount of compensation paid to employees during that period. Also, they're going to look at tax forms for the periods that overlap with the covered period. And those those tax forms include payroll tax filings, such as Form 941 or state payroll tax forms. In addition, they're going to look for payment receipts or canceled checks or account statements documenting any amounts paid by the employer for contributions to employee health insurance and retirement plan contributions that were paid by the borrower and were included in the forgiveness amount. They're also going to need documentation showing at the election of the borrower the average number of full-time equivalent employees on payroll per month employed by the borrower between February 15th, 2019 and June 30th, 2019. In addition to the average number of full-time equivalents employees on payroll per month employed by the borrower between January 1st, 2020 and February 29th, 2020. The selected time period must be the same time period selected for purposes of completing the PPP Schedule A application. Documents may include payroll tax filing reported, or that will be reported to the IRS, which would typically be Form 941 or the state payroll tax forms. Of course, documents submitted may cover periods longer than the specific time period because we can't get those quarterly reports to fit exactly that covered period. As far as non-payroll documentation, you're going to need to show documentation verifying the existence of the obligations or services prior to February 15th, 2020, and eligible payments from the covered period. So you're going to need to show verification for pre-February 15th and during the covered period. So for business mortgage interest payments, you're going to need to show a copy of the lender's amortization schedule and receipts or canceled checks verifying eligible payments from the covered period, or lender account statements from February 2020 and the months of the covered period through 1 month after the end of the covered period, verifying interest amounts and eligible payments. And again, remember, only interest amounts are going to be forgiven, not principal payments. Documentation needed for business rent or lease payments are going to be copies of the current lease agreement and receipts or canceled checks verifying eligible payments from the covered period. or you could also submit a lessor's account statement from February 2020 and from the covered period through 1 month after the end of the covered period, verifying eligible payments. Finally, for business utility payments, you're going to need to show a copy of invoices from February 2020 and those paid during the covered period, and receipts or canceled checks or account statements verifying those eligible payments. So these are the documents you're going to need to submit with your PPP forgiveness application. Excuse me. Now, the SBA is also going to require you to maintain documents, but you're not going to be required to submit, but you're going to need to maintain them for 6 years. And these are going to be all the worksheets that need to be completed to do the PPP application and the Schedule A. Also, documentations supporting the listing of each individual employee and the PPP Schedule A worksheet, including salary, hourly wage reduction calculation if necessary. And also documentations supporting the listing of each individual employee in the PPP Schedule A of the forgiveness application, which includes worksheet table 2, specifically so that shows each listed employee receiving any single pay period in 2019 compensation at an annualized rate of more than 100,000. And they're going to need documentation, or at least they're going to need to maintain documentation regarding any employee job offers and refusals, firings for cause, voluntary resignations, and written requests by any employee for reduction in work schedule. So very important with these, you're going to definitely need to maintain written documentation. You're also going to need to document and have supporting documentation for the PPP Schedule A worksheet that calculates the FTE reduction safe harbor. And then, of course, all records relating to your loan application, all the documents that were submitted with the loan application, and then any other documents pertinent to the forgiveness. The borrower must retain all such documentation in their files for 6 years after the date of the loan is forgiven or the loan is repaid in full. So you're going to have to keep those documents for a long time. And also you're going to need to permit authorized representatives from the SBA, including representatives of the Office of Inspector General, to access such files upon request. So there you go. These are the documents you're going to need to submit with the PPP loan application forgiveness, and will also need to maintain in your files for 6 years after the loan is forgiven or repaid in full. With that, have a great weekend and stay safe and healthy. Thank you.